Ooh, and I will give you hosting to Courtney. Thank you, Courtney. Take it away.
All right.
Make us fabulous.
Let's see if this works. All right.
Already.
Can you guys see my calendar?
Yep.
You see a slide?
No, we see the slide.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm trying to make sure I've got this the right one here. Now I can't see it. Something's weird. Hang on. Okay, there we go. Can you still see just one slide?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're good then. Okay. So go ahead and get started. Everybody looks like everybody's here.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, welcome to How to Be Productive and Not Just Busy. I'm going to do my best to get through this in like an hour or under. This is normally a full day or 2-day workshop that I teach. So we won't have time to really go into, like, normally I'll give a thing and then I'll say, okay, go break into groups and do this for 15 minutes or whatever. Obviously, we won't do that, but I want to at least cover the essentials so that you'll have the information and then you can do it on your own. I'm happy to share the slides. Obviously, we'll post it on Sweet Assist as well. And then if you need any help or you're going through this, if it's the first time you've ever done anything like this, it can be a bit of a struggle. So feel free to reach out and I can help you through it as well. But there's definitely a difference between being productive and being busy. And so we want to err on the side of productivity, especially when we're in a business where every one of our minutes counts and can make us profitable or not profitable. So is there anyone, by a show of hands, who does not use all 24 hours of the day that they are given every day? Like, you have leftover hours at the end of the day that you are somehow able to bank and use at another time. That's obviously a joke, right?
Yeah. Do we sleep? Do you count sleep or?
No, we're all using
okay.
our 24 hours every day, right? There's no way to save them or use them more productively or keep them for another time when we feel like being more productive or whatever. They just keep ticking by. And that's why it's really important to kind of get a hold of your time management and your productivity management to achieve the goals that you have for yourself. Because the reality is that distractions are everywhere. If we allow it to take away our focus and keep us distracted from our goals, then a week or 2 weeks or a month or a quarter or whatever can go by without us really having worked on our goals at all. So one of the things that we want to do is to fill our time with the things that are going to matter the most to us in a way that makes it easier for us to say no to the things that don't matter and make us productive. So that's one of the things that we'll look at today, because as we all know, there are distractions everywhere, right? There's family, there's marketing hitting us, especially as realtors, right? As soon as you sign on as being a realtor, you are on every mailing list there is to try, you got to watch this webinar, you got to watch that webinar, you got to do this. And it's hard to know what things do I actually want to spend time on and look at and spend time doing, which things are going to help me, especially when you're a newer agent. Neighbors, you know, when you work at home, you get your neighbors and your family stopping by on a regular basis. And as much as we might love those people, they can also be a distraction if they're not planned times. And if it's not something that we actually have planned in our week. So it's one thing to spend the day cuddled up on the couch with our kids. If they're homesick, we obviously make adjustments. We do the things that we need to do. But if our mother-in-law is stopping by every day just because she wants to chit chat for an hour or two every day, that can really break into our productivity. So getting a hold of those things and managing that time really can be a huge productive booster if we start to focus on it. The harsh reality in life that takes most people well into their 30s or 40s to figure out is that everyone has their own agenda and they don't really care if you reach your goals or not. And I'm not going to say that they don't care as much as it's just when they have their agenda, they have the things on their list they need to get done. They're worried about getting that done. They're not concerned about, is this cutting into your time to get your goals done? And is this something that is going to work in your schedule or not? Very rarely do people even ask, hey, is now a good time? Or can I, do you have 30 minutes to spare on this or whatever? They'll just interrupt you with their day or their marketing message or their webinar or whatever it is that they want you to see to try to sell you something and part you from your money or your time or whatever. So the thing is that we really have to take control of our own time. We have 100% ownership of achieving our own goals. Managing our own priorities is our responsibility. They're not anyone else's priorities. They're ours. And so getting crystal clear on what those are, those priorities, those values that are important to us and our goals, and then minimizing those distractions is what helps us to be able to be more productive versus just being busy. If we allow it, other people will put their agenda on us every day. Then we're just busy, but not productive. So we want to put what's important to us and obviously our family first, and then focus on the rest of the stuff later. So it starts with priorities and values. This is usually where we spend about 45 minutes to an hour in a day workshop to talk a little bit about what those are. I'm actually going to post the values in the chat here in just a few minutes, but I have a list of values. And so what you'll want to do with this is, if you want to take notes on how to work this, because you're going to work it from the top down, is that you want to focus on what you value most. And, some of it's easy stuff, like obviously family, or, our relationship with God, or our relationship with our husband, or our, whatever those things are for you. But you want to focus on what you value most and what your highest priorities are. So when you start with the values, what you're going to do is I'm going to put up a list, and let's see if I can put it in the chat here. I'll put it in the chat for you in just a second. My computer, and there we go. These are core values. So I just put it in the chat for everybody, so you can download the core values list. So what you'll see there is a list of about 100 core values. And what you really want to do is get that list down to about 5 to 6. So the way we walk through this is you kind of go through it and just circle the ones, or put a little tick mark or something next to the ones that speak to you immediately as you go through the list. And there might be, when you're all done with that, there might be 15 or 20 that, kind of spoke to you. So they're all important, of course. You'll read some of them and be like, well, of course, why wouldn't everybody want all of these? What you're really looking for is the ones that truly speak to you. And you're like, that's something that's truly important to me. Like, I do care about that. Okay. So you're going to put a little tick mark next to all of them as you go through the list. And then you want to kind of go through the list again and look for similarities. For instance, you might have one that is something like give back to the community, and then another one that is contributor, and then another one that is community focused, those type of things. So really, if you look at those three and you have all three of those highlighted, then you could really combine all three of those into one. Okay, they all kind of mean the same thing. So you want to look at that. So go through the list at first, put a tick mark next to the ones that are the most important to you, that speak to you the most. 15-ish or so is probably where you're going to end up at, 15 to 20. And then you want to go through and look at the ones that you've marked and see which ones are similar and break those down into one. So like the three I just mentioned, you could make that into one. Okay. You go through that whole list, and ideally you want to get that value list down to 5 to 6. Why this is so important is because oftentimes we'll create goals for ourselves that we think sound great and we think they are important, but they don't align with our values. So as an example, if I had a goal for myself to be a professional speaker, which is not my thing, but like, if, let's say as an example, I want to be a professional speaker and I want to be on the stages all across America. Okay. But my highest value is family time. Those two things are contradictory to one another, because I'm going to be away from my family if I'm going to be traveling a lot and speaking on national stages everywhere. And so what happens in our lives is that our subconscious kicks in and says, wait a minute, I'm not really going to work hard towards this goal because it contradicts this other thing that's really most important to me. So if our true underlying value is to be at home and spend as much time with our kids and family as possible, but we're pursuing this goal that takes us away from it, then you can see why you might set up obstacles for yourself or procrastinate getting things done that would put you in a positive realm to make that goal happen, because it's contradictory to one of your highest values. So that's the type of thing you want to kind of look at. Like, are my goals aligned with my values? If my goal is one I have right now, or I had until recently because I removed it, was I kept, you see, all my friends who own property, I hang out with a lot of investors. They've all turned all of their long-term investments into short-term investments, and they're making a fortune on them. And so I kept kind of toying with the idea of turning some of mine into short-term rentals and doing some short-term rental stuff, but I wasn't really pursuing it. And I was like, I'd think about it. And every time we'd have a conversation, I'd go, yeah, I need to do that. Yeah, I need to focus on that. And I kept putting stuff in my calendar, like research this and check this out and think about moving this property to short-term rental. But then when it would come up in my calendar, I would never do it. And which is not like me. I'm not a procrastinator at all. I'm totally an action taker. And so after about the third or fourth time that I didn't do this thing, I kind of was like, well, this is really weird. I need to narrow this down a little bit and see what it is. Well, when I really got down to it and started thinking about the whole core of what I thought short-term rentals were, it really contradicted my goal, right? Which right now for the next 5 years is to do as little work as possible and to assign as much stuff out as possible, and really get to a point where I can just manage my properties kind of from a report and not do a whole lot of work, like work less than 5 hours a week on my properties. And so it was like taking on the short-term rental thing was a whole new thing I was going to be learning after 32 years of being in the business. And it was going to require getting, all new team put in place and a whole different thing. And all of a sudden I started realizing why I had been procrastinating that, because it completely was against all of the other values that I was making important in my life and that are my highest priorities. So those are the types of things you want to look at when you're setting up this list of core values and figuring out what your highest priorities are. Look at your goals when you're setting those, and we'll get to that in a second, and really make sure that they align with whatever your core values are. And if not, and you find yourself procrastinating things or not doing things that you think you should do, then really ask yourself why that might be and see if there's maybe a core reason that could be happening. All right, I hit the button, but it's not going. Hang on one second. There we go. Okay, so that's a list of core values. Was everybody able to download that and get it from the chat? Okay, good. All right, so figure out what your top core values are, choose 5 to 6 maximum, and then write those down. So it's a really good idea to have this type of a thing in one notebook, because you're going to be doing a few different things, but it's going to start with your core values. Okay, so write those core values at the top of your notebook and just really kind of get crystal clear on what those core values are for you. It's also a really good marketing piece to share with people what your core values are. So if you have any sort of, agent presentations that you give to buyers or to listing presentations or any of things like that on your social media, letting people know that, hey, I know who I am and I'm clear on what my core values are. That's something that people often really like to see. They like to, align with people who have similar core values with them. So it's something that's a really good marketing piece as well. Even though it's kind of your personal decision as to why you do what you do, it's also something that people do really like to connect with you based on. The next step is to really envision yourself 10 years from now. And it was funny, I think they did this exercise at the 2023 thing we were at, and I always do this in my workshop as well. So you want to really think about yourself 10 years from now and what does your life look like? And think about this is another exercise we spend about 30 minutes on, but what in 10 years, when you're doing what it is you want to be doing in 10 years, you really want to visualize yourself there. What are you wearing? What are you driving? Where are you sitting? Where are you living? Who are you surrounded with? Really kind of encompass yourself in this scenario as though you are there. And start to really think about, how did I get where I'm at? What things mattered that helped me to get here? And write those things down. What were the things that I did over the last 10 years that got me here where I'm at now in your ideal situation, living the life that you want to be living in 10 years. Okay. You may have a different house. You may be in the same house. You may be driving the same car. You maybe have a new car. You may be surrounded by different people. All of those things are yours to decide. But if you can engulf yourself in that scenario as though you've already achieved it in 10 years from now and start to think about, truly dive deep into what were the actions that I took to help me get here and write those down. You'll look at the things that did matter, like things like giving back to the community and deepening your relationship with your sphere of influence and regularly following up with your leads. If you want to continue to be successful in real estate, if that's part of your 10-year vision for yourself, holding open houses, if that's your thing, those are the things like that you're going to think about that helped you to get where you are at this 10-year you. And then really start to think about and go through this exercise of what things am I currently doing that did not support my action to get here. So if I'm living the life I want to be living in 10 years and I'm sitting there and I'm feeling myself enveloped in that life, what are the things I'm currently doing that are not supporting the activities to help me get to there? Okay. And write those down, because those are things you need to contemplate later, whether you want to continue or doing them or not. There's some things, obviously we're all allowed some splurge time and time to do whatever it is we want to do. We all earn that a little bit. But if we're doing more of that than say the things that matter and help us get where we want, then we need to assess, do we really have our goals aligned with what our values are? And if so, why else are we not achieving them? Why are we not moving forward and doing what we need to be doing? So really looking at the things that we do that don't support us in getting to where our goals are is an important aspect of analyzing what's keeping us from achieving those things. Now, as you go through and you write down, what can you eliminate? Write all those things down. And then you have to make a decision, right? You have to commit. And commit is basically just breaking off the fact that you're making a commitment that you're going to do this. So it's like, let's say for instance, yesterday I had a conversation with one of my agents who said, I've been doing what you said and going on social media and liking 5 to 10 posts of people that I'm connected with and making comments on them. But I find that I get easily distracted. And the next thing you know, 45 minutes has gone by and I've just kind of been scrolling through social media. And so I asked her, okay, what part of your day are you doing this activity at then? And she said, in the morning. And I said, okay, so what if you were to switch that till all of your other prospecting activities are done? Because we just laid out a daily worksheet for her where her full day was not done until like 3 o'clock. I said, what if you switched it and started doing those things instead of first thing in the morning, you did them at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's when your day is done, because she wants to be available when her kids are home. So then you do those things at the end of the day. And then if you get sidetracked with it, it's fine. You're only taking time away from yourself and your kids instead of your other prospecting activities, which are going to help move you forward to where you want to be. And she was like, oh, well, that was an easy fix. I should have talked to you about this sooner. So it's that kind of thing you want to look at. It's like, do I want to eliminate it completely? Or do I want to move it somewhere else where it doesn't affect negatively the other activities I need to be doing to move me forward? Or am I willing to just completely get rid of this? Or do I want to allow myself once a week a splurge on it? I'm going to sit on social media every time I get my nails done, and I'm just going to veg out in front of social media for the full hour. Okay. Or whatever that thing is for you. Okay. So it's not that you have to completely eliminate everything you enjoy doing, but if it's taking over from you getting the things done that are going to move you forward and being productive, then you need to maybe reassess where they're being done in your schedule. Does that make sense? Okay. When you know what's important to you, it's a lot easier to ignore what's not. And that's where the steps come in that we're going to go through next. If you know what your goals are, and you know what your values are, and you schedule those tightly to help you move forward towards your annual goals, your quarterly goals, and your monthly goals, then it doesn't leave you a lot of time for other stuff. And so then you have to make conscious decisions that, oh, I'm going to be removing this from my calendar in order to put this in Is that smart? Is that something I want to do? So just by doing that act, it helps you to kind of think through the process a little bit better, which you'll see here in just a minute. I'm going to demonstrate it for you. So here's the plan that I work with people on. So the first thing we do is we spend usually 2 days for most people in October, November timeframe doing their annual goals. And annual goals, and this is usually like a company that I'll go in with or whatever. Annual goals are based for personal type individuals. You can usually do this in 1 day. But annual goals are based on everything from what your company wants to achieve, what you as a person want to achieve. If you're doing them individually as agents, I'd say you could do all of this in 1 day, unless you have like an extensive real estate portfolio and a team that needs to be brought in to have this discussion and all that. That is usually where it ends up being a 2 day. But let's say for a typical real estate agent, thinking about your annual goals and what you want to do and what you want to achieve, you're going to really want to look at all the different aspects of your life, from everything from who am I as a father or a mother, who am I as a son, a friend, all of those kind of things. And what do I want to achieve this year, and work through that annual goal plan. And that's usually a series of questions that I ask people and walk them through to kind of come up with what their annual goal plan is. But let's say we fast forward through that whole day and we have a list of, say, 15 goals for the year. Okay. And then the next exercise is to break those into quarterly goals. So if you have, say, 15 annual goals for the year, what does that look like on a quarter by quarter basis? Can some of those wait till a later quarter? Maybe there are things that don't have anything to do the first or second quarter of the year. They're towards the latter part of the year. So they could go under third quarter goals. And then some of the things need to be worked on all throughout the year. Like a financial goal, for instance, is usually something you're going to be working on throughout the goal. So let's say you want to make $100,000 in real estate commissions this year. That essentially breaks down to being $250,000 a quarter. Okay. And then I would say, usually I'll take that down to a little bit more of a notch to say, are all your quarters equally divided typically, or is there a slower quarter or a busier quarter? So if you tend to do more business in third quarter, you might make that goal 350,000, where in first quarter, you tend to be slower because you have a lot of family commitments and birthdays and all that kind of stuff. So maybe you're going to take that one to 175 as an example. Okay. But you set those goals up. So you take your annual goals and you break that down into what does that look like for quarterly goals. Sometimes it can simply be the annual goal divided by 4. Sometimes it might be different activities that need to be done and broken into different quarters. So then you have in your book, so you started out with your values, and you started out talking about the things you're going to give up, what you're going to be doing with your time, where you're going to buy back some time, if you will. Now you're in your book, you're talking about your annual goals and then breaking those into quarterly goals. Okay. From those quarterly goals, we break those down into monthly goals. So I didn't do out the whole year here, obviously, but you can see January, February, March, they're all broken down for your first quarter there. So your quarterly goals get broken into monthly actions and focus. And so again, you're going to write into your book, okay, well, if my quarter one goal is to make $200,000 as an example, then what does that look like for January? What does that look like for February? And what does that look like for March? So I'm basing it on income right now, but let's say we wanted to do, we know January starts off a little slow, picks up towards the end, but we know February is a little bit slower. So we might say, okay, well, I'm going to do 200,000 or 100,000 in January, and then I'm going to do 50,000 in February, and I'm going to do the rest of March. So you kind of start to think through that a little bit, and you would be breaking these down into your notebook. So January goal, February goal, March goal. And obviously it's not just about income, it's everything, but I'm just working through all of these. And then what you're going to do is break those down into what do those months work out to in weeks. So we know that some months have 4.5 weeks, depending on the month. And then some have just 4, some in February have shorter weeks, that kind of thing. So you're going to break those down into weeks and then look at what that looks like from a weekly thing. You'll look at your daily tasks, which is what we'll do in a second. Okay. So any questions on this part so far? You can unmute yourself if you have a question. right, perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a little demonstration of this. So let me share my calendar. Can you see my calendar?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. So it's messy right now, right? This is the perfect agent calendar I wrote. This is what I called it. This is sample calendar. So what I did here, just to kind of give you a brief overview, is I took an actual calendar from an agent that I was working with on her action plan to achieve her goals. Okay. And we use this as a demonstration for her. So to give you an idea of what's happening here, because I don't know how well y'all can see this, so I'm going to try to expand it a little bit. There we go. And then hopefully you can see it a little bit. So as an example here, you can see that she has things like follow up with leads, okay, every morning. And you can see this is repeated just weekly on weekdays. So she put it in, we put it in her calendar from 9 to 9:45. She's going to follow up every weekday, okay? And you can see here that it overlaps something else, which is important. I'll show you that in just a minute. And then next is call for sale by owners from Zillow, okay? Again, repeats daily every week on weekdays. Okay. Call for sale by owners from Redfin, repeat weekly every day on weekdays. Call expireds, same thing every day. Okay. A lunch break and a walk around the neighborhood. Okay. Posting a video story on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Okay. 45 minutes for that. Like or comment on 10 Facebook posts of like people she's connected with. So that's repeat weekly on weekdays. Send 5 handwritten notes. Text 5 sphere of influence people from her phone. Okay, again, every day, every weekday. So this is like the typical calendar kind of thing we laid out for her. At the end of the day, so we have a lot of time off between 3 and 5 because she has small kids. So when they come home from school, she wants to spend a little bit of time with them, talking to them, finding out about their day, all that kind of stuff. So we left a lot of that open. And then at 5 o'clock, review hot sheet. And you can see again, that repeats every day. Now, a couple things that overlap here, just to give you a feel for how this works, is every Tuesday, she wants to do a vendor lunch. So this would be somebody like that she wants to go out and meet and invite them to lunch, a pest control person or a home inspector or a potential lender or, those type of people to build her team and, to start getting referrals from them. So this item is something that we put in that is every Tuesday, repeats weekly. Okay. So obviously that conflicts with the lunch that she already has in there, but it's easier to just kind of schedule things as reoccurring appointments and then remove them. Every Wednesday morning, we have in her calendar that she's going to deliver RPR reports with a cover letter. So this is for listing prospects. So if she talks to a good for sale by owner prospect on Monday, and she feels like she builds rapport with them, they would go into her list to deliver an RPR report on Wednesday. But while she's out, she's just going to do a whole bunch of them at one time instead of constantly going in and out of the house. One of the things I talked to her about was grouping your things together so that you're not focused on something at the computer and then running out of the house and then coming back and focused on something on the computer and then running out. It's like, if you have to run out, try to book all of those things together so that you are being a little bit more productive. So from 9 to noon every Wednesday, she's blocked out that she's going to deliver RPR reports for all of her listing potential prospects. Okay. So again, that conflicts with all of these things that we have as a reoccurring. But the other thing that we've done is scheduled that every Friday at the end of the day, right here, you'll see it, review week and plan next week. So every Friday at the end of the day, she'll come in and look at the schedule. And this is where you kind of go, okay, this is where the productivity part comes in. It's like, I've got to do all of these things, but I've got to move them around and make it realistic for me to get them done, right? I can't be at 2 lunches at one time. I can't do this and all of those at the same time. So then that's where every Friday, looking at the week ahead, she would sit down and say, okay, well, I've got all those recurring things I want to do. Well, I don't need this lunch because I don't need to have another lunch. I'm having a lunch with a vendor, so I can delete that one. So you can just delete that event. You can see I moved some of these already just because I didn't want you guys to be overwhelmed with the calendar when I opened it. Here she's got her sphere of influence lunch, so she can delete her regular walk and lunch. And then she's going to post videos, but she's doing a sphere of influence lunch, and she allowed a little bit extra time for that because she doesn't want to rush. That's an important thing. So she wants to do her videos. So then she has to say, okay, well, I think I might have to do that one after the end of the day when the kids are asleep or in bed or doing homework or whatever. So she has to move that around. So every Friday, by looking at her existing things that are already scheduled and important, then she's able to kind of, let's see, what is this one? Follow up with leads. That's a huge important one, right? She's got to figure out when she's going to get that done. So because she's making time for something out, for something new, like the sphere of influence lunch, which is important, but she's only doing it weekly, she either has to move those other tasks to another time for the day, or she has to decide they're not important. I'm not going to do those too. Okay. Obviously, following up with leads is important. Now, might she say, okay, well, actually on Wednesdays, since I'm doing our PR report delivery and my sphere of influence lunch, I believe those things are more important and productive, that I think I won't do a video that day for social media. That's fair. I think that's okay. So then she could just delete that and say, I'm just going to delete that Wednesday event, and then I'll do my follow-ups a little earlier. And now my Wednesday is pretty full. So if she goes through every day like that on Friday for the next week and lays out her week, okay, and has a pretty good idea of what's supposed to be happening, one of the things that we scheduled for her was every other week, she's going to do an open house, not every week, but every other week. So you'll notice in her schedule here, it says pick house for open house this weekend. And this reoccurs every 2 weeks on Tuesday. And then we have a list of things when she goes in and does that. So she first has to find the house. Which one is she going to hold open? Confirm it with the list agent. Make sure it's okay to show it. Pull the comps and get to know the property. Schedule a time to go look at it before she holds it open. Schedule a time to knock on 20 neighbors' doors. Create the posts for social media and have the lender create a flyer. So all of those things, by putting them right here in her calendar, we've kind of created a little system, if you will, for every time she does that. She knows the 7 steps she needs to take to get prepared for that. And we just simply did that by opening up the event and putting them in the notes section. So depending on what calendar you keep, you can do something along those lines. So now she has this in there for every other Tuesday. It's going to automatically pop up, and she knows she has to do these things. And then right in here, you'll see that there's already scheduled install signs for the same week. So she's got time to install signs, and then she's got time blocked out to door knock the neighbors for the open house and the open house. So by deciding what her goals were, and then deciding what actions it was going to take to help her get to those goals, and then scheduling those actions immediately in advance, if somebody were to call right now and try to book time with her, not a buyer or seller, those become a different situation, but say a friend or a family member or whatever, she can look at her schedule and be like, well, I can do it Monday afternoon around 3 or at 6, or I could do it Thursday at 3, or I could do it Friday at 4. So she's got a little bit of time limited to a limited amount of time to fill with those frivolous things that might take her time away from achieving the priorities that she has. Now, she obviously is a grown adult, so she always has the choice to go, yeah, let's do it Thursday morning at 10 a.m. and not get her stuff done. But then, of course, she's making the choice to go into her calendar and remove those things and put something else in, which makes her kind of psychologically think, okay, wait, I'm removing these items. Do I want to reschedule them for another time, or am I just not going to do them? And if I don't do them, what kind of repercussions is that going to have on my outcome of my goals? Excuse me. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, one thing you can't see in here because of all of this is one of the items that is in here is a every Friday, a weekly item is admin and training time. So there's 3 hours blocked out for admin and training time. I told her that I thought She can have lunch while she's doing her admin time. I'm kind of mean that way. But if she wanted to move her story down a little bit later, that would be fine. And then her likes and comments on social media and stuff like that would be down a little bit further as well, because that admin and training time is important. It's important as agents that we have that time set aside. So if you're an active agent and you have activities, of course, you always have admin stuff that needs to be done. You can save it for one time of the week. If you're not an active agent, you're prospecting a lot, then you probably have admin time as well. And if not, you definitely have training activities that need to be scheduled, but they don't need to be taking over. Your prospecting time is certainly more important. So this way here, you have it kind of glopped is my formal word for it, into one time during the week there. And then, like I said, always having a section of review for weeks undones and plan next week. Because here's the thing with this type of a schedule, the best case scenario is you're going to get through this, and at the end of the week, this is going to pop up and you're still going to have things that you missed, right? Like you might have all the time in the world planned. You want to do your for sale by owners, you want to do all of these things, but a buyer calls and you end up taking that call, obviously, and talking to them for a while and pulling some properties for them. And so you don't get this activity done, as an example, okay? But when Friday rolls around at the end of the day, when review week for undones comes up, one of the things you do is look at your week and go, okay, did I get that done? Did I get that done? Did I get that done? Oh yeah, I did that. Okay, go. Oh, I didn't do this one. So now you make the decision. Do I want to reschedule this for next week? This one happens to be a reoccurring event. It's already rescheduled. Or do I want to delete it? Or do I need to get it done this weekend? Or do I move it to another week? If so, when do I have time to do that? And you look forward at your schedule for a time that you can move that to. But at least it gives you a reminder to kind of go through your schedule to look and see, did I get everything done? And if not, what needs to be redone so that it doesn't fall through the cracks and rescheduled or removed because I'm really not going to do it. It's not congruent with what my goals and values are. I just keep putting it there. I need to kind of have a conversation with myself about whether or not I'm going to actually do it. Okay. You can see the open house there. And then here we have deliver pop buys to sphere of influence, 10 people and 2 potential vendors. So in this case, with this particular agent we worked through with, we decided that she was going to take Fridays off and not call for sale by owners and stuff on Fridays, because she's going to do her pop buys and have that be her admin day. So in that case, we would actually just go through here and delete those particular items just so that her schedule doesn't look horribly overwhelming. But when she's doing a Friday planning, she can kind of do that for the next week and say, okay, nope, I want to deliver my pop buys. I think that's going to provide me more value than calling the for sale by owners another day. Like she's already calling them 4 days out of the week. We talked about possibly doing it on Saturdays, but what she's probably going to do is move it to the Saturdays when she doesn't have an open house. So if she does 2 open houses, like next Saturday, for instance, she wouldn't have an open house. That's when she might call for sale by owners on that Saturday. But you can easily manipulate your calendar a little bit when you're doing it this way, because you're kind of looking through everything at the same time. Okay. Does that make sense? Any questions? I'm going to stop that share and go back to my slides. Which one is it? This one, I guess. Okay. Hang on one second. There we go. Okay. Are you guys still seeing the demo slide?
Yeah, it says demo.
Okay. I don't know why mine doesn't match that. I'm not getting the same thing here. It's weird. Okay. All right. So a couple things I think everyone should have in their schedule all the time. An annual planning for the next year, usually in October or November. Again, I think a typical normal agent could do that in 1 day instead of 2 days. In my case, I do it over a 2-day period because I have my own individual goals, like as a realtor and everything. But then I have my husband and a private lender that we work with a lot that is loans on a lot of our deals. So they come in on the second day, and then we do more company goals, like what we want our business to look like, our home buying business. So mine is usually a 2-day, and I usually do it over a Friday and Saturday in October, towards the end of October. I just encourage people to do it earlier than most people start, like around the middle of January, if thinking about their goals. And so you're already kind of by the end of January, by the time you get it implemented. So kind of start it in advance. I feel like it gives me a good chance to look at the current year to see, how am I doing on my goals for this year? And do I want to put a push on to achieve more? Or do I want to take a chill back and kind of just take some time for myself through the holiday? And then kind of, what do I want next year to look like? So it's a good time to kind of go through all of that. I look at everything that I want to achieve for myself personally. I do a lot of volunteer work and stuff with the community. So it's like, what do I want that to look like next year? What organizations do I want to get more involved in contributing to? Is there anything I want to do, like networking wise? Is there something I want to change in my coaching business? So I really kind of just analyze all of that. For the typical realtor, you might look at, is there networking groups I want to be involved in that I haven't? What things can I reach out to and start to get implemented now, so that by the 1st of January, things are rolling well. If there's a group you want to get involved in and there's an application process and it takes time to get involved, then you want to get that going in October, so it's up and running starting in January. So I always feel like that's a really good time to do that. At the end of each quarter, I always encourage all of my coaching clients to have a full day of review and reset. So this could be a full Saturday. It could be a Friday, as long as you do that, your regular daily activities on another day. But preferably it would be a full day Saturday at the end of each quarter. During that time, you're going to want to take a look at, what did I achieve this quarter? What did I do well? What did I not do well at? What things was I not disciplined with? And how can I get better at that? Is this something I can enlist my coach to help me with? Do I need more accountability from my coach? Do I need to get more clarity around my goals? Do I need to have somebody work through it with me? Maybe there's a reason why I'm not doing this. Do I need to talk through it with somebody a little bit better? What things did I do well? What things did I not do well? Are my goals still the same? I mean, let's face it, we set goals in October, things change. Let's say we have, a baby. Stephanie was on the call, or I don't know if she still is, but in October, Stephanie thought her life was one thing, and now it's something totally different. If at the end of first quarter, she starts thinking a little differently, it's perfectly normal to go, you know what, actually, these 3 things that I thought were really important to me are no longer important to me. Or sometimes just as people, we say, I want to do these things and these are part of my goals. But then we start going, actually, that's not really kind of my goal. I just happened to be high on it because I saw it on a seminar, or I was in an all day and they talked about it. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. I should do that. But when we really get down to it, it's not something we really want to do, especially when we start looking at our calendar the way that I just showed, because it means we got to take other stuff out, right? We're already using our 24 hours. So if we're going to put something else in, we got to take something out. So when you have to start making those sacrifices and making those choices to say, if I take this out and put this in, how's that going to affect my outcome? Then that makes us start to think of those things a little bit differently. So a full day to kind of review all of that. And I have a list of questions I'll actually post in the chat in just a minute. The 3rd week of each month, automatically I have rescheduled. And again, this is something, mine's in there and it's been in there for 20 years. But it's the 3rd week of the month. I review the existing month and then look at next month. So I review my month to say, what have I done well? All the things we kind of just talked about for quarterly. And then what does next month look like? Let's say my income goal for the first month, this current month, was 100,000 and I'm at 50,000. Okay. Then currently what I'm doing is not working. My goal was 100,000. I hit 50. So what I'm doing is not working, or it's not enough, or I need to change things. Or maybe there's a specific reason why. Maybe I had a closing that fell out or whatever. If it's something like that, it's a closing that fell out. It's like, okay, well then what I'm doing is enough to get me to achieve my goals. So I don't need to change that, but I do need to make that deal up somewhere, somehow to achieve my goals, or else I'm not going to hit my goals this year. So now I need to kind of figure out and start to be proactive about where am I going to do that and what am I going to do? Maybe what I would say is for the next 2 months, instead of doing an open house every 2 weeks, I'm going to do one 3 times out of the month instead of just twice, and see if I can get caught back up on track. And then I'll review it at the end of second quarter. So maybe that would be an outcome I would change. Okay. That's the type of thing I would do. I usually do mine the 3rd week of the month on the Friday. So it's how I have mine scheduled as a reoccurring. It just pops up and it says review current month and next month goals, ? Still the same ? That's the activity that's in my schedule. And I think I have it as a 3 hour or 4 hour. And then every Friday, like I said, reviewing your current week for any missed items that need to be rescheduled, get dropped, move away, whatever, and then organizing for next week. So that's an automatic at the end of every Friday. Some people like to do it on Sundays. I guess it depends on your lifestyle and where you do things. I like to do it on Fridays because I don't work weekends much. And so for me, it's kind of like, then I know when I come into the office on Monday, my week is ready to just roll and I've already got it all laid out and everything. And I don't have to think about it over the weekend. Depending on your lifestyle and how you set your schedule up, Sundays may be better, but as long as you have that time. Couple of rules of thumb. Don't overschedule. You want to leave 20% of your time for things that pop up, right? In this business, that happens all the time. Hey, can you show me this house? So you got to move things around. So you want to leave some time. You don't want to be so stressed that you can never get anything done, but you also have to always keep in mind your priorities and that other people will always allow their priorities to over trump yours. Review weekly. Am I on track? Did I get done what I needed to get done? What adjustments need to be made? And then number 3 is really important. This takes practice. This is just a skill. When I show this to people and I show people how I do this and what I do, they're like, okay, well, this is obviously really easy for you. And believe me, it was not in the beginning. It took me a long time. When I moved from a paper planner to an online calendar, it took me a good year of doing both before it was a comfortable transition for me. So it looks easy now because I've been doing it for a long time, but this is a skill that has to be developed and you have to just have the discipline to manage it on a regular basis. So give yourself grace when you don't get it right at the first time and when you struggle through it a little bit, and then just keep saying, I'm going to get better at this. I'm going to get better at this. I didn't do this well this week and that's okay. Next week, I'm going to work on that a little bit better and see if I can get that part. And if you can just every week get a little bit better and a little bit better, eventually you'll get really good at this. Number 4 is really an important one, breaking down projects. People oftentimes will put in their schedule like an hour, and that hour might be like get newsletter out. Okay. As an example. Well, getting the newsletter out might be 5 different projects, right? Or 5 different actions to that one project. Like getting newsletter out is kind of a project. So what I encourage people to do is to break those down into bite-sized chunks. So it might be like get newsletter out, and then you might have in the notes section the steps that it takes to do that, but then schedule each of those. So for instance, when you're sending a newsletter out, you have to prepare the list. So are you going to get that from someone else, or are you going to do it yourself? If you're going to get it from someone else, you just need to, send the email, then you can put that in your task item. Send email to XYZ, ask for list for newsletter, so that becomes the task. If you're doing it yourself, then you might need to block some time to prepare that. If you're ordering it from somewhere or whatever, you need to have the time to do that. If you're going to hire somebody to fold them and send them out for you, or do it yourself, or get a neighborhood kid or whatever, those things all need to be scheduled. So it's not just 1 hour and you've underestimated that it's actually going to take 2.5 hours to get this done. Okay. So think about each thing as you put it in your calendar. Is this really enough time? And should this be broken down into bite-sized chunks? And then delegate as much as possible. Get your kids involved. Fiverr is a really great source. I use it all the time. I'm on Fiverr almost daily, hiring people to do tasks. You can find people on Fiverr to do anything and everything. They'll post your videos for you. They'll make ads for you. They'll get mailing lists for you. They'll do all kinds of things. So if you haven't spent any time on Fiverr, and I encourage you to spend some time there and just look at some of the things that you can outsource for $5 to $10 to $15. It's crazy. Use a transaction coordinator, save yourself some time that way. If you're not getting your prospecting done because you're working on one deal and all of that time and attention is going to that deal, well, then you're not managing that deal properly, number one. But if you're new and this is all kind of crazy and you're not used to it, that's okay. You're going to get better at it. But using a transaction coordinator can buy you back some of that time. So that's one other way. And then also you can hire a VA if you have a lot of work. If you're a full-time agent, you've been doing this for a long time, you have regular business, you probably have a lot of tasks that you can outsource and have somebody else help you with. My VA charges like $5 an hour and they do a lot of activities for me. So it's definitely something to consider if you're at that stage in your real estate realtor work. When your priorities and the action items, when your priorities and the action items to support your goals are scheduled first, then it's much easier to say no to the things that do not support your goals. And I think that's really the important part of managing a calendar and keeping a calendar regularly with the activities like what we showed scheduled in there, so that you already have that pre-planned and that time is there. Then you just need to work on the management of the discipline to follow that calendar, which is also a skill set. And it just takes time to get used to and to hold yourself accountable for it. And if you have a coach, ask them to hold you accountable for it. Set up some systems with your coach so that they can hold you accountable for what it is you're wanting to achieve. The sample calendar that I showed you, we have that now where she's sending that to me every week and she's circling in red the things that she has not completed. And then she's check marking on it the things that she has completed so that I can help hold her accountable to that, notice any patterns, and then help her for the next week to get better so that she can get better and better each week at that skill set. So that's what I have for you today. Any questions?
I think that was great.
Well, thank you.
So my coaches, I had to screenshot a copy of my calendar and send it in, and they didn't like it. And they were like, nope, you need to fix this, fix this. And I had to schedule my sleep time. I had to schedule exercise time when I'm going to hang out with my family. They're like, you need to fill this whole thing out. And I was like, oh, what? Yep. I'm like, well, come on, guys. So, to me, it was almost overwhelming. And I said, look, if this is like completely filled, I'm not even going to look at it. So, which is hard enough for me, but you do. And, I'll even we have an example of what a week looks like for a full-time agent so that they can start off with something. Yep. But I don't care. It's got to be real estate activities. It's got to be prospecting. Every day we have to be prospecting somehow.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So, and I mean, 20 plus years, I'm still doing it. Like, right. And if you're not doing it, then you're paying someone to do it, or Absolutely. You have a team doing it. So then you're outlaying expenses. So but it can't stop. So that's what the agents don't get. Like, if either way, you're still doing it because you're the face of everything in the voice. So you're either coming up with the ideas, or you have to take time to create the content and then put it out there. So it's not like you can just sit down and eat bonbons and clients are coming to you. That's just not how it is. And I don't think any business owner gets that luxury. So
right. You might get to the point where you might not have to prospect 5
as much
because you're getting referrals. So you might only have to prospect 2 days a week, but that might take some time. And that takes a conscious decision to say, oh, I have enough activity coming in now. I don't need to do this on these days. I'm going to make this adjustment. But Correct. Then you're going to be nurturing relationships more. So that's take the time of that prospecting.
Yeah. You see your calendar shift and your activities shifting. And so, and I'll even talk to people and say, okay, well, your evenings, instead of sitting on the couch and watching TV, that might be when you're following up or creating content or doing other things, because your whole day was spent maybe out with a client or out doing something else. So it's, But you talk to any business owner, restaurant owner, they're doing the same things that we are.
Oh yeah, 100%.
They are. They're you know, they're having to market, they're having to network, they're having to get customers in. So how do you do that?
For sure.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
your time might be spent watching TV and creating your email drip campaigns for
Mhm.
following up with customers so that,
Yeah.
so you're doing that. And now you've got that set up. So when you have follow-ups, you can easily attach the email drip campaign, but it's like, it doesn't go away.
No, it's a constant or updating that
Yeah, for
email.
sure. For sure.
Yeah. I'm like, oh yeah, we got to update that. So,
Yep.
you know, following up. So
Yep.
good times.
Never ends. Never ends.
Well, thank you, Courtney. It was
You're
good.
welcome. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
Stephanie's
Courtney.
quiet.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Steph, you
It
have
was
anything to
absolutely
add?
amazing. Loved it.
Good.
Good.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you.
No, that was great, Courtney. Thank you so much.
You
It's
are welcome.
always good to see it from a different perspective.
Yeah. Thank you, Vicky.
It is so hard, you guys, like, especially when we work from home. Because you can get distracted, even me. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna just do house stuff. And then pretty soon I haven't done any work. And then, you know, I have to go into the office and get stuff done. You have to separate and then you have to take breaks. And, you know, it's just like anything else. But if I were to go into the office, I wouldn't get anything done. So
Yeah, it's definitely
hard.
it's discipline that you have to work on, like anything else, you know.
Yep.
It's one thing when you're expected to be at work because you have a 9-to-5 job that you're getting a paycheck for. You go there and you
Right.
do what you do. But when you're a realtor, it's totally different. Nobody's
Yep.
sitting there going, okay, did you come in? Did you do your job? You have to kind of be that person for
Yeah.
yourself. Since
Yeah.
the more tools you can put in place to use to fall back on,
Yeah.
the better it helps and makes it easier for you to accomplish.
Yeah. Well, and more automation, it really helps. It
Mm.
truly does.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
all right. Thank you. Thanks,
Great.
guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.